Welcome to Research KE. This is part 3 of our series on web development course. So in this video we'll be checking on HTML forms. The HTML forms make important part of our website because it is where we get the user requests or user responses. So to get direct to our content today, so we'll start by creating a HTML file, which we already created one here. So to create HTML form, we'll first write our HTML default syntax. And in the title, we'll put the title as HTML forms. And here we'll start by creating our form. And inside our form, we'll create a label. Let's call this label name. And then input, we'll have here name. Save. After saving, you refresh your file and you can see we have this box here for entering the user request. As for now, our input type is empty, so it is set as default for text. If you want to specify this, you can put the input type here to be text. In that, when you check most part of the website, you'll see that in many websites, when you highlight on what you need to fill here, the field itself will highlight for you where you should be filling your details. To do this, there are two ways of doing that. The first one is wrapping your element inside the label tag. And save. Then refresh the page. Now you can see when we click here, it highlights for us the field that we need to input our data. And the second way of doing that is by using the for tag. So for the for tag, let's do it here. Label. For equals to name input type is text. Here is name and ID equals to name. Save and refresh, and you can see it's the same. When you highlight on when you click on what you should be filling, it highlights for you the field in which you should be inputting your data into. So I'll just remove this part here. Another thing on the form, let's say you want this form to accept the user input. So to do that, you say action. Where do you want this form to be submitting our data? In our form, we'll be submitting our data to our second page that I created here, webpage.html. And the method of access, I'll be using the get method because the get method appends data on the URL, while the post method appends data to the server, but here it does not have the server, so we use the get method because it appends the data to the URL. So we can save that and refresh our page. Now let me add another label here for submit. Just put a button, submit button, and then the button type, it will be a submit button. Save and refresh. So let's input data here. For example, we search KE and then submit, and when we submit our data, you can see what has been entered here. The data that has been entered here is here appended on the URL in the web browser. URL is a uniform resource locator. In this page, I had created a link that will take us back to the original page. So our next label will be the email label. For the email label, the input data type is email. And the label here will be called email. The name is email. And you can see when we enter anything that is different from the email, our form will deny. For example, let's do that and submit, and you can see it saying please include an I in the email address. Even though this is a very basic validation, but it's useful. So we must enter something that resembles an email for the submission to proceed, and you can see it is proceeding successfully. So our next label here will be the date. So let's say, for example, here you want the date of birth. Inside this label, input type will be date, and the name, let's put it to date of birth, and save and refresh. And you can see it is giving us a default type of form of a calendar here that we can choose our date. You might want to give your users a direction on how to fill the form. For example, by highlighting in the field, if you want email to be here, for example, want them to see an example of an email here, so as to know what to be filled. That can be done by adding the placeholder on the fields. So here you can add placeholder, then you can give an example by saying 123@gmail.com, save and refresh, and you can see this placeholder is existing here. Once the user starts to enter his own data, the placeholder disappears. Let's bring these forms here below so as to look at least clear. So we can add the div in between. Yeah, like that. And if it is a must that the data cannot proceed if a certain field is not entered. To put such restrictions, you need to add another element here. That is very simple. You just add there required, meaning that the author or whenever person is filling in the form cannot proceed without inputting data in this field. And let's try that and see. Let's put the email here. Let's choose a date, maybe 5, and submit. Back to page. Oh, sorry, I haven't saved that. You can see it is proceeding when you have a name, and now let's try when the field is blank. Please fill out this field. So when you put a required element in your data field, the author must input the data, meaning that it cannot submit a null field or a null element or a cell. So we can put required here as well, and on the password as well you can add required if you like. Another type of button that we might need on our website is the reset button. So let's create a div, and in this div let's create a button. The button is reset button. So come and specify the type here, which is type of reset, and close your div. Then you refresh that. So reset button, it clears the form and returns the form to its default way, or how it was in blank form before it was filled. So we can fill out these spaces like that, and when you reset you can see it clears everything and the form remains empty. Let me add some spaces in between. Yeah, now the field is well spaced. Another form of input that is used mostly on our web page is the radio button. So the radio button is used to select items. For example, you want to take the gender of the user from your website. So to do that, you need to create a label. Let's add some space in between here. You need a label. And inside this label you create an input. So your input type here will be a radio button. So put input type to be radio. The label here is gender. So to do that, you create a label. The label name will be male, input type is radio, but the label name will be gender. and you can create another label. Name it as female. Input type is radio, and the name is gender, meaning that you cannot submit two inputs for this gender on these options. You can either click male or female. Let's try that. So when you click male, it picks male. When you click female, it undoes the male input option. That's how the radio button functions. Another thing that you see most on the websites is the checkbox. So the checkbox is used to select items on the website. You can select a single item, multiple items, or mostly you can see on the website where you ask to accept the terms and policies on the site. So to do that, you create a label. You create a label. For example, let's say you are selecting the types of cars. So let's say you have a Mercedes here. I hope that's the spelling. Then input. So the input type here is the checkbox. Name is Mercedes. You can create another label. Let's call this one Honda. Input type here is checkbox, and the name is Honda. And you can see yes, the checkbox, and you can select multiple or single one depending on the restriction of your site. Another useful input on the website, you'll always find a website where you are asked to upload files. So in order to accept file from the user, you have to use the file input type. So the label here is upload files, and the input type is file. The name of the input here, you just call it files, and you save. When you refresh, you can see upload files. So choose file, and you can choose even this file and open. And you can see it has accepted the files html tables.png has been chosen as the file. Another useful part on the website also is the text area, where when picking user inputs, the user is asked to enter in additional information, for example explanation or anything else. So to create that area, you need to create, and you must not use a label in your website as well. You just create, it's called a text area tag. and here you'll call it bio. Save and refresh, and you can see the text area. So in the text area you can type anything like I like the product, and you can see how it works. So another thing on the website, let's assume that you already know a default value that the user should be entering in the form, or you don't want the user to interfere with the form. For example, the name of the user, let's say you already know that the user is Joe, and you don't want the system to accept any other name apart from Joe. To do that, you need to set a value. So say value equals to Joe. Save. And you can see in the name field already it has named itself as Joe, and it cannot accept any other value apart from Joe. And on the date tag, for example, you don't want the author to enter any date beyond 2025 or 2022 and not below 2010. To do that, you need to do a maximum and a minimum set. So to add the maximum, you come and put maximum. For example, maximum you want it to be on June 2006, 2023, and the minimum you want to be on 2nd of February 2015. Save and refresh, and you can see, let's try entering any other value apart from that, apart from our maximum value. For example, anything on 2024. So that's all on our HTML forms. In our next tutorial, we'll be showing you how to add images, audio and video to your HTML web page. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. Kindly subscribe and hit on the notification bell. Thank you.